Family Lifestyles. I'm Lynn Blankenship, the Extension Agent for Family and Consumer Sciences Education, and today we are going to be talking about living wills and estate planning and advance directives, and we have Bobby Esters, who's the Benefits Director of Kentucky Legal Aid, here to discuss this very important topic, and Kimberly Hereford, who is the K-State West Region Work-Life Educator. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming. And I think we're going to start off by talking about powers of attorney, Kim.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about Kentucky Legal Aid and its purpose?
Yes, so Kentucky Legal Aid is the only free civil legal services provider in southwestern Kentucky. Since 1977, we have been providing top-tier legal assistance to people living in poverty, the disabled, and senior citizens. In addition, we provide services concerning legal matters such as family law, domestic violence and housing counseling, and we can also assist you with things like advance directives and simple estate planning.
Okay, thank you. So referencing advanced directives and simple estate planning, can you tell us a little bit more about powers of attorneys?
Yes, absolutely. So a power of attorney is a document that allows someone that you trust emphatically to be able to handle any of your affairs, legal or financial, if you become incapacitated. Maybe you found yourself in the hospital recovering from a lengthy illness or an injury, or maybe something a little more serious and you've found yourself with a recent diagnosis of dementia. So this document will allow someone, like I said, to be able to handle any legal or financial affairs on your behalf if you become incapacitated. And that can involve handling issues with the hospital, with your health insurance company. Maybe they need to go pay a bill and access your bank account, those types of things. So it really allows someone to act on your behalf in the event that you're incapacitated. So when we talk about powers of attorney, a power of attorney can only end in two ways. And that is the person that has granted the power of attorney, we call them the principal or the agent, they will revoke it in writing, or in the other way is death. A power of attorney does not extend beyond anyone's life. So, and a power of attorney can be changed at any time. If you find maybe circumstances have changed, maybe the person that you appointed as your power of attorney has passed, then you can always do a new power of attorney. Another point that I want to make is a lot of people think that because they're married, their spouse automatically has the ability to handle their affairs. Well, you know, my husband can handle everything, so I don't need a power of attorney. Well, that's in fact incorrect. The law views everyone as an individual, and with that, because your husband may be on, or your wife may be on your bank account, and yes, they can handle you know, things with your bank account if they're listed as, you know, the other signator, but they are not, they'll have a lot more difficulty in being able to handle things regarding your life insurance, your health insurance, dealing with the doctors, if you receive a Social Security benefit. They, you know, most of these places will not speak with you even though you may be that person's spouse. So even if you are married, it is recommended, we highly recommend that you have a power of attorney on hand. And I always say that you need these regardless of your age or your health status. Young people, old people, good health, bad health, you all really need a power of attorney because we don't know, you know, that crystal ball. We don't have a crystal ball that's going to tell us, you know, what next week entails. So it's always a good thing to have on hand. With a power of attorney, you obviously designate someone that you trust emphatically as your primary attorney, in fact. but you can also have a secondary person in the event the first person that you've appointed is not able to act, or maybe they're unwilling. Maybe something has happened and they're no longer willing to serve as your power of attorney. So, and that is something that Kentucky Legal Aid recommends, is having an alternate in place in the event your primary beneficiary is not able to perform his or her duties as your power of attorney. Now, it is the same with all of our other documents. Everything that we do at Kentucky Legal Aid, including the powers of attorney, are done free of charge. Our main office is located in Bowling Green, but we do have offices in Paducah, Owensboro, and Madisonville. And in the event someone cannot get to one of our offices, we will make arrangements to meet you where you're at. Whether that be homebound, maybe you're in hospice or long-term care facility. Those are arrangements that are always made with the advocate, and something that we're always willing to do to basically bring those services to your home. We want to make sure that you have these documents and that you're getting the legal services that you need in place, and location is not a barrier as far as our office is concerned.
I have a question.
Yes.
What if a person doesn't have, no longer has a spouse or never had a spouse, it's a single person, and they don't have any children? Is there a list of suggestions of how a person might go about finding someone to serve as their power of attorney?
There is not a list. Typically, it doesn't have to be a family member or a child to serve as your power of attorney. It can be a member from your church group.
I see.
It can be a family friend. It can be pretty much anybody can serve as your power of attorney. So it's not just limited to family, but it does need to be someone that you trust, just because you are giving them the access to your bank accounts and to all of your financial and legal information.
So if you have a regular attorney, would that attorney be able to serve as a power of attorney for you?
In most instances, an attorney will not serve as a power of attorney because they would consider that somewhat a conflict of interest. And I think there may be some ethical protocol there that attorney might not be able to represent someone. So again, we say reach out to your community, your church member. There have been pastors that I know that have agreed to help someone if they're in that situation and just don't have anybody. So yeah, that's what we would recommend, is reaching out to community members.
So you said that throughout a person's life that they need, even a child needs to have a power of attorney. Are parents the best power of attorney for children, or is it better to have like a godparent or an aunt or uncle or someone outside of the immediate family?
So typically for children, the person that has, the legal guardian, mom and dad, there's not necessarily a need for a power of attorney for a child, but once someone becomes an adult, then we highly recommend having one of those in place, of what I like to call the big truck theory. You never know when you're going to step out and get hit by the big truck. So not to make light of the situation, but that's what we recommend.
Okay, good to know. Thank you for joining us for this segment. We'll be back for 2 more segments. Next, we'll be discussing living will directives with Miss Bobby Esters.
I found hope in the midst of an overwhelming situation.
I let go of trying to control things that I had no control over, and that helped me find peace of mind.
Alcoholism is a disease that can affect any family. Everyone suffers, but there is help and hope at Al-Anon Family Groups.
I was constantly stressed and worried. Now I approach each day with joy and gratitude.
In Al-Anon, families and friends of alcoholics find new ways to heal from the effects of a loved one's drinking.
Al-Anon gave me my life back. I'm a better father and husband.
Are you in an overwhelming situation because of someone else's drinking?
Al-Anon and Alateen can help.
Local and virtual meetings are available. Maybe one could work for you. For information, call 1-866-200-0033 or visit alanon.org/hope.
Welcome back to Family Lifestyles. And we're back with Miss Bobby Esters from Kentucky Legal Aid and Kimberly Hereford from K-State. And we're going to hark back for a minute to powers of attorney. There's another question that needs to be answered.
Ms. Esters, can more than one person serve as a power of attorney?
Yes, they absolutely can. So in some instances, you know, I have 2 children, so maybe I want my 2 children to serve as co-powers of attorney versus selecting one over the other, and they can certainly do that. In doing that, they would have to completely work together. They have to sign documents together, and so, you know, you have to make sure that those 2 powers of attorney can work together. In the other instance, like we had mentioned before, you can designate someone as your primary power of attorney, and then on down in the paragraph, you can designate someone as the alternate in the event your primary is no longer able or willing to serve as your power of attorney.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Bobby, I hear a lot about living will directives. Can you tell us more about what that document means and its importance?
Yes. So most people know when you go to the hospital these days, they're going to ask you, do you have a living will?
Yes.
A lot of people answer no, and sometimes the hospitals will have forms there, but it's best to have a living will directive completed by an attorney. These are documents that you put in place if you become incapacitated to the point of needing life support. So we're talking about no cognitive function, you're not able to voice your concerns or your wishes at that point in time. So your biggest question is that you would want to ask yourself is, do you want life-sustaining treatment? Some people would want, I've had several people say, you know what, I would like a living will, and I think I would like to be on life support for maybe 7 days. Maybe, you know, that would give them time to determine if my cognitive function will be able to return, if I'll be able to return to, you know, possible standard of living that I had prior to the illness or the injury. And everyone has different views about living wills and life support. Some people absolutely do not want life support at all. And a living will is different than a DNR. I'll go ahead and say that very quickly. A DNR is a do not resuscitate, and that is a document that prohibits emergency medical responders or first responders from doing any treatment as far as, you know, if you've had a heart attack, they're not going to resuscitate you. So this is a little different. This is when you've actually gone to the hospital and you're now faced with a serious illness or injury and will have to be dependent on life support. Some people, like I said, will request that the life support be set for a set amount of time to ensure that all efforts have been made to ensure the person can, you know, have viability. In the living will, it's similar to a power of attorney. You will designate someone as your healthcare surrogate. And that person, again, must be someone that you trust, does not have to be a family member, can be a member of your community, a friend, a church member, but needs to be someone that you can trust to work closely with the treating physician to ensure that your wishes in the living will are met at the hospital. A living will directive can also indicate whether or not you want artificial food or water during this time, and it can also indicate whether or not you want organ or tissue donation as well. So when you do a living will, and this is also the same for a power of attorney, you want to be sure and give a copy of these documents to family members, to your treating physician, as well as your local hospital, the hospital that you think, you know, if something were to happen, where you would go. Typically, they will take those documents and scan them in, and will have them on your record. But it's good that people know, your family and your medical team as well, know what your wishes are in advance so that they can act appropriately.
I have another question.
Okay.
So what can people do? We've got a situation where if someone calls the ambulance and the ambulance comes to the house, and maybe they are married but their spouse is out for the evening, you know, at a club meeting or something, and they feel like they're having a heart attack. So they call the ambulance, and the ambulance comes, but they're blacked out when the ambulance gets there and there's no one else there. Is there a way or a method where people could put a copy of their documents, their living will, somewhere where the EMTs would easily be able to find it? Is there a method or a recommendation for that?
So that's a very good question. Typically, we recommend that everyone keep their documents in a safe place, and that may be something like a fireproof safe, which is not going to be easily accessible. No. So probably in that instance, what would happen is the ambulance would take you on to the hospital, make contact with your spouse, and then your spouse or the designated person on your paperwork would get the paperwork to the hospital at that time.
Okay.
Now, if it's a DNR, because they are not supposed to do any type of resuscitation, typically I recommend you putting that, you know, actually taping that on your wall somewhere or your refrigerator or something, so that EMS can see that when they enter your home.
So I've seen like a red thing with a magnet on it. It's like a pocket, and it's like important medical documents. It says it right on it, and you can stick it to your refrigerator and slip documents inside it.
Yes.
And I've been told that EMTs, in a situation where they arrive and someone isn't there to speak to them, that they look around for stuff like that.
Yeah.
I've also been told that you should keep something like that in your, if you're a woman, you're in your purse or in your car, in your glove box.
Yes.
Because if you have a car accident, they're going to look for something like that as well. So
Yes.
is that?
Yes, that is very good advice.
Okay.
And then I also keep a copy of my husband's power of attorney and living will on my car, or in my car, or on my person at all times, because I just, you know, if something happens and he's at work and he has an accident, I can get straight to the
You
hospital.
don't have to go home first.
I don't have to go home and get
Rummage
those documents.
through a
Yes,
safe or whatever.
yes. So I try to keep a copy, and a copy is acceptable. They do not have to have the original to be able to go
So
by.
you could take a picture and keep it on your
You
cell phone.
could. You could
in
keep
your-
a digital copy.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. So those are all great things to know about that and the accessibility, because, you know, those are the people when they come and you're passed out in your house and you call 911, if they don't find any of that information, they are going to resuscitate you, even if
Yes.
that's against your wills, because they don't know.
Yes, exactly. You've got
So-
to have that documentation posted clearly for first responders to see.
Okay, well, that was very enlightening, and we will be back for segment 3 on last will and testaments. Thanks for joining us.
You felt so kind and generous. I don't know, keep on giving. For your kindness, I'm in debt to you. For your selflessness, my admiration. For everything you've done, you know I'm bound to thank you for it. La, 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 la. Oh, I want to thank you, show my gratitude, my love, and my respect for you. I want to thank you.
Hello, friends. Welcome back to Family Lifestyles. Thanks for sticking with us. And we are on our final segment with Bobby Esters from Kentucky Legal Aid and Kim Hereford from K-State West Region Extension. We're going to be talking now about living wills and, last will, sorry, and testament.
How important is it to have a last will and testament?
Okay. It is very important, and I'll touch base on this very quickly since Lynn said living wills. So you have to think of a living will as a document you have in place while you're living. Your last will and testament is a document that you put in place that lets family members, loved ones, friends, your community know what you want done with your assets and property when you pass. And that can be done in a manner of ways. You can designate, I want my china hutch to go to my daughter, and I want this to go to this person. But you can also just, in my instance, I have 2 children. I just want everything to go to my 2 children, divided equally. And that's, just very simple. So you can do a couple of, do your will pretty much any way that you want. By having a last will and testament, it not only puts your mind at ease knowing that your wishes will be made known after your passing, but it also helps your family members and your loved ones, because we all know that when someone passes, especially if they pass unexpectedly, it's very hard on the family. And now they've got all of these huge decisions to make about what are we supposed to do with the house? What about mom's car? All of these decisions can be made ahead of time in your last will and testament. There's a couple of different ways you can do a last will and testament, and one, of course, is having it done by an attorney. Again, Kentucky Legal Aid will prepare these documents for you free of charge. But the other way is called a holographic will, also known as a ghost will. So you can handwrite your own will, sign and date it. And that is just as legal as anything an attorney can do, but again, it does have to be completely in your own handwriting, so it cannot be partially typewritten and partially handwritten, and signed and dated. Now, with an attorney-prepared last will and testament, it does require, Kentucky law requires 2 witnesses and a notary. And in our previous segments, we talked about living wills and powers of attorney. Those documents also must be notarized. They do not have to have witnesses, but they need to be notarized as well. So I wanted to just bring that up because I did fail to mention that in our previous segments. When you do a last will and testament, as with the other documents, you'll need to appoint someone that can be the executor over your estate. So this is going to be the person that's going to be responsible for filing probate and ensuring that your estate is dispersed the way you've requested in your will. Some people appoint one executor. Some people will appoint a couple of executors, and they can be co-executors and be required to work together. Or they can be a primary co-executor or a primary executor and an alternate in the same instance that if the first executor cannot perform their duties or is not, they're not willing to act as the executor of your estate, then you've already got your alternate person listed in the document that can then carry on with getting your estate settled.
So, in my experience, the last will and testament helps to limit conflict amongst the people who are left when you pass away, who feel like they may have a claim or a right to some of your things. So, how do you recommend communicate? Like, should everyone get a copy of that when that's made, or should there be a family meeting where everyone sits down? Because I've been witness to people who ended up with dementia at the end of life, and they just, as people came and visited, didn't matter what their will said, that person would be there at their bedside, and they'd be visiting, and they'd be like, "Here, you have my wedding ring," even though in the will it said someone else was supposed to get that. So. How do you handle that kind of a situation?
That is a tough situation because the person, at that point in time, the will has not taken effect.
Right, because they're still alive.
Because they're still living.
And so their wishes override? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they do. So yeah, that can be a very tricky thing to handle, especially, you know, when mom or dad or grandma or grandpa are, you know, handing out, you know, things. And, you know, we encourage people to do that. If you know that you want your granddaughter to have this heirloom quilt, maybe at some point
Give
in
it to
time,
her
go
before
ahead
you
and give it
pass
to her
away.
before. And that way you know she has it.
Well, you get the joy of giving that gift as well.
Yes,
I mean,
yes,
while you're still
absolutely.
alive.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So, but that's essentially a last will and testament in a nutshell. Now, Kentucky Legal Aid prepares simple wills. So if you have a more complex estate with maybe a lot of assets or a lot of farmland, you would probably need to seek a private attorney because they are better suited to handle more complex financial and asset situations.
So Extension has a lot of resources on farm transition planning.
I saw that.
Yes, so that would be good if you do have a farm and you don't have a last will and testament and you're thinking in that direction, contact your local extension office and ask for those resources on farm transition planning, and that can help get you in the right direction when you're making those plans. Yeah.
That's awesome. I saw that the other day.
So was there any other important information about the last will and testament, Bobby, that you feel like our viewers really need to know?
My main point would be do it sooner rather than later. As with all documents, you do have to be of sound mind. So if someone has received a diagnosis of maybe dementia, that doesn't necessarily knock them out of having these documents done, but it would need to be done in early phases. We all have to be of sound mind and body to be able to sign these documents. So, and again, as I've stated previously, if someone cannot come to one of our offices to have these documents completed, we are happy to visit in home, at the hospitals, anywhere. So.
I'm just going to put one more thing out there. If you are fortunate enough to inherit some money from a relative who has passed away and you get a check from the estate, it's important that you cash that check or deposit that check quickly, because if you hold on to that check, that estate can't close and be settled until all of everything is cleared. And I was in a situation with a family member who left money to siblings, and one of the siblings was holding on to the check for months and months and months and wasn't answering our phone calls to inquire, and we were unable to settle the estate for 2.5 years because she was saving that money for a vacation and she refused to convert that check into a money order or something. So please don't be that person that holds up the settlement of the estate. Figure out a different way to do it. Just putting that out there because, experience.
So for more information about Kentucky Legal Aid, you can contact us in a variety of ways. Online at www.klaid.org. You can call us at our intake department at 270-782-5740. Our office hours are Monday through Thursday, 8:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. Or you can find us on all of the social media platforms.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, both of
Thank you for having
joining
me.
us on Family
Thank you.
Lifestyles.
Thank you.
See you next time.